Yeah. Philippines, stand by. All right, let's take in these pictures. You see the president and the first lady and the vice president and Karen Pence, the second lady there, and Mike Pompeo, that's the Secretary of State, walking a short distance behind the two couples. Our understanding is they're making their way to that aircraft, the aircraft with the 3 freed Americans that has just touched down at Joint Base Andrews, that they will actually board the plane, is our understanding.
So I guess the question now is, once they get on board this plane, how long does he spend with these 3 men? I mean, what do they talk about? How long is this meeting going to be? And when do they then emerge from that meeting for the world to see?
Yeah. President Trump with Melania Trump, the First Lady there. This is a big moment for him. Some would say this is his biggest foreign policy victory so far, coming just the day after they pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. But this will generate very different headlines.
It's a whiplash.
For the president.
When you think about what's happened with the Iran nuclear deal, within the last 24, 48 hours, and now this complete opposite moment, this moment of some moment to celebrate, really, of these 3 Americans arriving home.
And let's just tell you about the 3 Americans that we are waiting to see when they get off that plane. Let's give you a little bit of background. 3 hostages freed from North Korea. Kim Dong-chul was arrested in 2015 on spying charges. He'd begun serving a decade-long sentence of hard labor. A North Korean official told CNN that he had confessed to espionage. The second of the 3 is Kim Sang-duk, also known as Tony Kim, was taken at Pyongyang airport last year, accused of trying to overthrow the government. And the third of these 3 men, a North Korea state-run news agency says Kim Hae-sok was held on suspicion of, quote, hostile acts. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in China and is ethnically Korean. So those are the 3 men. 2 of them were arrested after Mr. Trump took office last year. And the last of the 3 was taken prisoner in the dying months of the Obama presidency.
And again, you have to question the credibility of those charges and the validity of what these men had done. And obviously they were targets of opportunity, it seems many would say, for the North Korean regime. They hadn't done anything wrong, but because of their passport, they were nabbed, they were grabbed, and then they were used as bargaining chips. But at least now they're free.
Jeff Zeleny is still with us there at Joint Base Andrews. And Jeff, as we look at the First Lady and the President and Mike Pence and his wife approach that plane, just to give us some context again of this moment that we're looking at. They're going to get on that plane. Do we know anything more after they go up those steps as to what the conversation will look like and how long it will last?
We do not expect it to be a long conversation, of course. I mean, talk about the ordeal and just the long flight, of course, that these 3 freed Americans have had. But the President and First Lady ascended the stairs. As you could see, the Vice President and Mrs. Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo standing at the base of the stairs there to greet them. And boy, I can tell you, the crowd that is greeting them are photographers, quite frankly. Dozens, or at least a couple dozen photographers with their cameras all trained toward this shot with the flag behind it. This is what the President and the White House indeed want. This shot, they believe, is a, if not the first chapter, perhaps the second chapter in what they hope will be real diplomacy with North Korea. But significant that First Lady Melania Trump came with the president this evening. She doesn't always travel with him and do things with him, but this is a moment that certainly her grace and touch is certainly appreciated and necessary. So the president, we believe, will speak briefly with him on the plane. It certainly is up to him how long he stays on there. And then we're told they will descend the plane, and then he is expected possibly to make remarks here. And I can also tell you there is a bus for the Walter Reed Medical Center that is likely to take these 3 gentlemen for evaluation, of course. So one thing I'm struck by, you probably can't see on camera here, is all of the airmen who are based here also recording this moment of history on their iPhones. Every phone that I can see and a big camera is trained onto this plane here. This really is something extraordinary. We've not seen anything like it. A U.S. president greeting these freed Americans here. Again, it's one step in this what could be historic diplomacy, but certainly an early step.
Yeah, Jeff, what is interesting is in the past, like when Donald Trump went to Las Vegas after the mass shooting there, he met with the first responders, the medical workers, and that video was quickly turned into a campaign sort of style video, which they put out on social media. We saw something similar. We went to Texas during the hurricanes there. How soon will it be before we see these images turned around and put out on social media by the president as some kind of campaign message?
I expect before the sun rises, you will see something like that, without question. I mean, that is just a fact of life in the social media times. Certainly, this president, certainly aware of the images. So I expect his campaign to mention it, and he certainly will share this message. The question, I think, in a deeper way, is what happens when that meeting takes place with Kim Jong-un? Is he going to be able to, negotiate something lasting? The Iran nuclear deal, which was dismantled this week, was, years in the making. So this is at the very beginning road of this. But it clearly is something that this president wants to do. Now, as I look behind here, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is standing almost at attention. Of course, he graduated at the top of his class in West Point. As this president always says, he must be exhausted after his journey here, but he and the Vice President and Mrs. Pence are indeed waiting and watching. As we can see, everyone is wondering when they will come off and when they will walk down those steps of the plane there. But certainly the president and First Lady having a moment with these three Americans.
All right, Jeff Zeleny there for us at Joint Base Andrews. If you're just joining us, we're coming up to top of the hour, midnight here on the West Coast, 3 a.m. We're approaching on the East Coast of the United States. And if you're just joining us, you are looking at the aircraft carrying those recently freed Americans, freed from North Korean prisons. They have now touched down on U.S. soil. Aboard that aircraft, the U.S. President and the First Lady, Melania Trump, who made the journey from Washington, from the White House to Joint Base Andrews to personally welcome them home.
This has been a journey which began about 20 hours earlier when these three men were escorted onto the plane of the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who'd flown there to essentially negotiate the final stages of their release and also to talk about that upcoming summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. And then we have the First Lady, Melania Trump, and just behind her, her husband, the President, Donald Trump, and the three men.
And the three men.
Here they are.
The President and the First Lady giving them a handshake and letting them take in the moment.
And they look in not only good spirits, but in good health.
Yes, I'm still here.
Jeff Zeleny, you're there. We're watching these pictures there.
Yes.
And as you say, no family members there, but a lot of press.
A lot of press, and also the cheering that you heard there was from the airmen and women who are stationed here at Joint Base Andrews. This is a moment. I can say you can feel the gravity and weight of this moment as we watch this incredible scene here. One of the gentlemen thrust his hands in the air as they descend these steps here to take their steps on American soil, on U.S. soil. Of course, they landed in Alaska briefly, but now they're greeting the Vice President, Mrs. Pence, and Secretary Pompeo. And again, the cheers you can hear here from the men and women in the armed forces who are watching this happen here. There's not a crowd of other folks here. It is just the people who are working at the base. But as we can see the handshakes here, keep an eye on the President and First Lady. He is likely to come this way, and he may make remarks, and we'll see if he indeed answers our questions about this moment here. They certainly want to capture this moment for history, and let's watch.
At Joint Base Andrews, the three American detainees, and the President of the United States and the First Lady of the United States, now back home.
Yeah.
And Boris Sanchez, is at the White House. And Boris, I guess one of the issues with North Korea is that, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, he sees North Korea as, you know, a real possibility for a moment of, I think we're about to hear from the president. So stand by, please.
We want to thank Kim Jong-un, who really was excellent to three incredible people. They are really three incredible people. And the fact that we were able to get them out so soon was really a tribute to a lot of things, including a certain process that's taking place right now. And that process is very important. So we will see what happens. We have a meeting scheduled in a very short period of time. You'll be hearing about it soon. We have the location set, and we will see if we can do something that people did not think was going to happen for many, many years, and a lot of bad things could have happened in between. So I just want to say this is a special night for these three really great people, and congratulations on being in this country. Thank you. How does it feel to be home?
정말 반갑고 대단히 행복하게 생각합니다.
It's like a dream, and we're very, very happy. 어떻게 대우를 받았습니까? 북한에서 어떻게 대우받았습니까?
How were you treated? You have to give me the answer.
어떻게 대우받았어요?
여러 가지 대우를 받은 것은 있습니다만은 첫째 노동을 많이 했고 또 병이 났을 때 또 치료도 좀 받았습니다.
Yes, we were treated in many different ways. For me, I had to do a lot of labor, but when I got sick, I was also treated by them.
My proudest achievement will be, this is a part of it, but will be when we denuclearize that entire peninsula. This is what people have been waiting for a long time. Nobody thought we could be on this track in terms of speed. So I'm very honored to have helped the three folks. They're great people. You know, I got to speak to them on the plane. These are great people. They've been through a lot, but it's a great honor. But the true honor is going to be if we have a victory in getting rid of nuclear weapons. No, not at all. We very much appreciate that he allowed them to go before the meeting. It was sort of understood that we'd be able to get these three terrific people during the meeting and bring them home after the meeting. And he was nice in letting them go before the meeting. I mean, frankly, we didn't think this was going to happen, and it did. So you could say we're a little bit ahead. It was a very important thing to all of us to be able to get these three great people out. And I must tell you, I want to pay my warmest respects to the parents of Otto Warmbier, who is a great young man who really suffered. And his parents have become friends of ours. They are spectacular people, and I just want to pay my respects. I actually called them the other day, and Mike called them also, Mike Pence. And they are really incredible people. I think our Secretary of State, despite the fact that the New York Times said he was missing, he was in North Korea, but I think our Secretary of State has done a fantastic job. Mike, did you know that you were missing? They couldn't find you. They couldn't find him. They couldn't find him because he was in North Korea. You know, it's funny. I don't want to comment on whether or not I spoke to him. Well, we're starting off on a new footing. This is a wonderful thing that he released the folks early. That was a big thing, very important to me. And I really think we have a very good chance of doing something very meaningful. And if anybody would have said that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even a year ago, you would have said that's not possible. So a lot, I will say this, a lot of very good things have happened. Say it. I really think he wants to do something. I think he did this because I really think he wants to do something and bring that country into the real world. I really believe that, John, and I think that we're going to have a success. I think this will be a very big success. It's never been taken this far. There's never been a relationship like this, and we're starting from here. But I really think a lot of progress has been made, and we'll see what happens. We're talking about a few weeks. I guess many of you will be with us, but some great things can happen, and that's what we hope. So I want to thank you all. It's very early in the morning. I think you probably broke the all-time in history television rating for 3 o'clock in the morning, that I would say. But I want to just congratulate. These are 3 great people, and congratulations.
Have you gotten any sleep or were you too excited?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Could happen.
Well, we've been listening to Donald Trump there, making some remarks, some very interesting remarks, actually. Talking about the great ratings this will bring at 3 o'clock in the morning, which could be very well true. He also talked about the motivation, why Kim Jong-un has released these 3 men at this point in time. He believes that Kim Jong-un really wants to do something this time around, that he wants to do something for his people, that this is a real sign that they're serious about negotiations and progress will be made. He also said it was very nice of Kim Jong-un to let the 3 men go before the summit takes place.
Yes. Jeff Zeleny is there at Joint Base Andrews. I mean, Jeff, your thoughts on what we just heard from the president and specifically his comments on Kim Jong-un. We keep saying this. I mean, it is remarkable the change in tenor and tone on the part of the president when it comes to talking about the North Korean leader.
No question about it. I mean, this is someone who the president referred to as Rocket Man, but even more than that. I mean, when he was delivering his speech to the United Nations last fall, I remember being in Seoul, South Korea, watching the president really take Kim Jong-un to task and belittle him in a personal way. All that was gone. You saw the president have nothing but respect and praise for him. I think one of the more interesting answers to the brief questions the president was taking there was, why do you think Kim Jong-un is doing this? And he said that, I think he wants to do something. I think he wants to bring his country into the new world. So I think that that is the open question here. But one thing that is clear, the president wants to make a deal. He wants to have a bit of history of his own. He did not like the Iran nuclear deal from the beginning, largely because it was negotiated by President Obama. He wants to do something big, and he believes it is indeed this. But he said, yes, he believes this is an honor. He believes this is a big moment. But also he made clear that the biggest moment, of course, will come through a true change in the nuclear weapons program in North Korea. One question here is, what is the United States willing to concede or give up? That certainly will be something now that is part of the discussions. Of course, it's clear what the president expects Kim Jong-un to give up, but what is the president willing to give up? So these talks certainly will be complicated in every way, but now the United States has more information about Kim Jong-un than ever before. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, former CIA director, has spent more time face-to-face with him than anyone, of course, in American history. So you can be sure the next few weeks here will be spent studying his habits, what he wants to hear and like. And the president, of course, will have all that on his shoulder when he sits face-to-face with Kim Jong-un, likely in Singapore, likely in about 1 month's time. John?
And again, Jeff, thank you, and we'd like you to stay with us. Standing by also in Seoul, South Korea, Ivan Watson. And Ivan, yes, Mike Pompeo flew there. There was that surprise visit back around Easter that we found out about, a week or so afterwards. There was another second trip as Secretary of State. But there was also the role that the Swedish had played in all of this. Their negotiators actually played a role in getting these three men freed from their North Korean prison.
Well, that's right, because the U.S. doesn't have diplomatic representation in Pyongyang. It's the Swedish embassy that handles that. And we heard that the North Korean foreign minister had proposed initially the possibility of releasing them during a trip to Sweden previously. So Sweden playing a role as an intermediary when you did not have really direct formal ties between these two governments. And now, of course, we've had Mike Pompeo travel twice to Pyongyang in under 2 months. But worth noting also, you heard President Trump there saying that it looked like things were ahead of schedule, that the three American detainees had been released. When Mike Pompeo was flying to Pyongyang on this most recent trip, he told reporters, A, he wasn't sure whether or not he would get face-to-face time with Kim Jong-un, and B, he wasn't sure whether or not he would be able to secure the release of the three men. And it did turn out that he had about 90 minutes sitting down with Kim Jong-un. And as we, of course, have seen, he returned with these three men. We only heard from one of them on the tarmac. That's Kim Dong-chul, who was detained in October of 2015. He spent the longest amount of time in North Korean custody. And when he was asked about his treatment and how he was treated, he said, we were treated in many different ways. He said that he had been through a great deal of manual labor, but then that when he became sick, when he became ill, he was treated for that illness. He was speaking Korean through a translator there, and he would have spent the longest amount of time. I think we all can see that this is not a repeat of the tragic case of Otto Warmbier, which President Trump mentioned, highlighted, where that American university student was returned last year to American diplomats in a vegetative state, suffering some kind of a brain injury and dying shortly afterwards. So this will be a relief, certainly, to the family members of these three released American citizens.
Ivan,
very important to note, the South Korean government here has welcomed this release, John. They're calling for the release of at least 6 South Korean citizens currently in North Korean custody. John.
Just very quickly, do we know how this is being covered by the media in North Korea? What sort of coverage is it getting, and how is it being dealt with?
South Korean TV has been running with these live images. North Korea put out a statement, its state media, about the Pompeo visit with Kim Jong-un. And that was so striking, John and Aisha, because it's quoted Kim Jong-un congratulating Pompeo on his appointment to the position of Secretary of State from the CIA director's position, saying that he warmly and sincerely greeted America's new top diplomat. The fact that you have this kind of language coming from North Korean state media, which just months ago was talking about enveloping American cities in nuclear fire, is nothing that's less than striking and underscores how rapid the diplomatic changes have been in just a matter of months here.
Ivan, thank you. And again, please stay with us.
Jeff Stanley, to you.